Hello, fantasy sports fans, and welcome to MFSN, the Hub's NBA Waiver Wire show. We are at week 18. We're just a couple weeks shy of the playoffs, so now is a very important time to make sure your roster is in tip-top shape. I'll be your host for the next 45 minutes or so. My name is Casey Scheinbold. Dr. Dan is away, but will be joining us shortly. He's too busy curing the world of chronic pain. But don't worry, he'll bring his NBA knowledge soon enough. But fortunately for me, I am joined by our very own NBA insider and knowledgeable expert, Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk NBA waiver wire with you, cowboy. Hola, amigos. I'm excited. It's going to be great. You know whose birthday is today? Michael Jeffrey Jordan's birthday is today, the GOAT. 59 years old, Casey Scheinfold. Yeah. 59 years old. The GOAT turned today. It's unbelievable. Do you believe he's the GOAT, Casey, or do you think it's like one of those other phony GOATs that people always bring up? What's your thoughts?
You set me up to fail if I disagree. But no, I do believe Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. I think some of the players today are fantastic and may have some different stats than him that could shine light on them as possibly competing for that. But everything they do is based on his prototype. So I say it's got to go to him.
Correct answer, Casey Scheinfold. You're 1 for 1 today. I enjoyed that little perspective you gave.
Thank God.
Another thing that happened this week in the NBA, the Celtics played the Sixers earlier in the week, and the Sixers lost by 48 points to the Celtics. 48 points. I know Harden didn't play, but LB played. I mean, to lose by that many points to the mighty Sixers, who's supposed to be one of the big teams in the East, and he lost 3 in a row since. I mean,
I know. I remember growing up as a kid, going with my parents to see the Harlem Globetrotters play the Washington Generals or whomever their opponent was, and they never won. But it always seemed like it was about 46 to 50 points that they lost by. So maybe the Sixers were doing their best impression of that.
And last night, Casey Scheinfold, Brooklyn Nets playing horrible basketball. They lost 10 in a row, not playing well at all. They were down 28 points to the New York Knicks. 28 points! And the Knicks lost the game to the Nets. The Nets came back and won to a really – I mean, both teams are not that good in New York. If I was a New York fan of basketball, I would be very nervous about both teams.
It's not a good time to be a New York basketball fan.
No,
that's for
I
sure.
mean, I
don't know. Let's be honest. Other than the Bills, let's give the Bills credit. It's not really a good time to be a New York sports fan in general. I guess the Rangers are doing pretty well.
The Rangers are playing. The Islanders and Rangers in hockey, as you know, I'm a hockey expert. They're playing really well, and they should do some damage in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll see what happens. But long story short, the Knicks had all these. I mean, they thought Randall was the second coming. There were even talks about trading him. I mean, last week,
they wish they did.
Before the trade deadline, they were thinking about trading the guy. And he actually stepped his game up a little bit. But the All-Star break's coming up this weekend. I want to ask you your opinion real quick. Tell me your biggest surprise team and your biggest disappointed team, and I'll go next.
Wow. I think the biggest disappointment is probably the Brooklyn Nets. They started the year, everybody loved them with Durant and Harden and Irving. Then Irving Irving gets limited or prevented from playing in home games, and Harden goes on the NBA version of a hunger strike and decides not to try for a while or fake an injury. So they're probably the most disappointing. Most surprising, I would say the Golden State Warriors. I mean, I know Klay and Steph are special, but the way they started without Klay Thompson and how big Andrew Wiggins has stepped up, and I just think the Warriors, to me, were the surprise team of the first part of the season.
Warriors, everybody had them projected pretty high, but I understand what you're saying. Biggest disappointment teams, Nets, Lakers, easy. Biggest surprise teams, Cleveland Cavs and the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis is really, really good, and they're going to do some damage in the playoffs. Is a team I don't want to play. They're young, they're hungry, they run the ball. Morant is all world right now, and I like them a lot. I like Memphis. I like their core. They have a really good team, Casey Scheinfold.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. I should have thought of them.
It's okay. I put you on the spot.
I
like doing that to you, Casey.
I have Triple J on my fantasy team, and he's just a defensive monster. He's getting all those stats for me. So
the one more thing I'm going to say, and then we'll talk about waiver wire. I don't know if you watched this. So with the All-Star game, they have a draft. LeBron drafted a team and Durant drafts a team, okay? And it was after the trade deadline. So Harden was already traded. So I think there was some bad blood between Harden and Durant. You know, they both played on the Nets. I don't think Durant and Harden looked eye to eye on how the offense should be run. So during the draft, I mean, LeBron was actually had his notebook like this, like laughing the whole time. And it was on TNT, so Barkley was just feeding the fire. And basically, no one was taking Harden. I mean, basically, LeBron was forcing Durant to take Harden, and Durant wanted nothing to do with them. So throughout the whole draft, Barkley was saying, hey, Harden's available. Why don't you take him? Why don't you take him? Durant had nothing to do with him. And LeBron was just passing on him the whole time, laughing. And it was really funny to watch. And Harden was the last player taken in the NBA All-Star draft.
Yeah, I saw that. And then LeBron, I think, asked some question like, isn't he hurt or isn't he injured? And Barkley said, nah, he's been traded. Suddenly he's going to feel better now or something to that effect.
Right. So I thought that was that was a very fun moment. And it was kind of a real moment because you got to see LeBron. You could see LeBron and Durant really, I don't think they liked the guy. And
yeah, I mean, I was going to say it wasn't a real fun moment for James Harden or any of his fans, that's for sure. But it was a moment of brevity, which was nice to see. All right, to get back to where we are in week 18. We are 2 weeks shy of the playoffs starting in most standard fantasy basketball leagues. So we are going to give you the names to take. What we look at, again, just for those viewers who aren't aware, Yahoo availability, 60% or fewer owned. We're going to go position by position with guards, then forwards, then centers, and give you a few names at each position with who we think can help build your roster or round out your roster here before the playoffs. So let's start with the guards. Ross, I'm going to let you lead us off.
So I'm going to go with our cover guy this week is Kobe White, Chicago Bulls, Zach Levine, however you want to say it. He is hurt. He's been in LA for rehab. He'll be better. He'll be better by after the All-Star break. Obviously, All-Star breaks this weekend. But also, Alonzo Ball's hurt too, so they're kind of down a couple guards. Kobe White's been averaging 30 points a game. 30 minutes a game, but he's been averaging almost 20 points a game in the past 2 weeks. He's been playing unbelievable. And I feel if you need a guard and Kobe White is available, he could be a streaker, but I like him even though when the line comes back or even when Ball comes back, I feel he'll be in there. So I like Kobe White. He's my first pick of the waiver wire this week.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I think you could take any one of the backcourt players for the Bulls because they're all playing right now. Dosunmu is playing great, and even Javante Green is playing great. I think you're right in the long-term prospects of those three players that Kobe White is the one who's probably guaranteed to maintain his playing time, his usage rate. The other two might be hurt because Caruso is supposed to be back in the next week or so. And I think I read somewhere that Levine got some encouraging news about his knee, so he could be back sooner. I think once those two guys come back, the other two backcourt mates would suffer more. But as long as they're playing well, they're going to throw them out there. In the last week, Dosunmu's a top 20 player. In the last 2 weeks, he's a top 40 player. So it's not like he's playing poorly, and Javante Green is the same way. He missed a game, so his numbers this week are a little lower. He's only ranked 80th, but that's because he's played a game fewer than everybody else. But he came back last night again and put up a strong night and got over 30 minutes of playing time. So I think they're good picks. Who else do you have at guard?
I like Dennis Schroeder of Houston. He's been traded. He was traded at the trade deadline of the Houston Rockets. Last night, he had 23 points, six rebounds, 9 assists. Pretty good game last night for Dennis. He was a Laker last year. He started with the Celtics this year. Now he's with Houston, kind of a journeyman right now. But a Houston team is young. They're hungry. And he's like the veteran now over there. So I like Schroeder. A change of scenery always helps. I feel maybe he'll average 20 points a game, maybe 6 to 10 assists a game. We'll see what he can do as point. But I like Schroeder right now. I think it's a good pickup, and he's under 60%. So go get him.
Go get him. I like it. Another guy I wanted to mention, although I think he's a bit of somebody you play in the short term and monitor it. If it's somebody at the end of your bench, if you have somebody there who's underperforming, I think Cameron Thomas in Brooklyn is playing really well right now. They're not at full strength. They traded Harden. Simmons isn't up to speed yet to play, and Thomas is getting a lot of playing time with that. And because of that, he's putting up pretty good numbers, averaging 30 points a game the last 2 weeks, shooting almost 50% from the field, 80% from the line, hitting three-pointers, getting points, double-digit scoring in 7 straight games, including, I believe, 20 points last night. So that's a guy who's playing really well. And the other one I wanted to mention, again, he's playing well now is Devin Vassell from San Antonio. I know, Ross, you notoriously try to shy away from San Antonio players for fantasy because you don't like Popovich's system when it comes to that. But he's playing 33 minutes a game. He's averaging double-digit points during that time. He gets assists. He gets rebounds. He even chips in a block here and there. He qualifies at both guard and forward, so he can play 4 different positions on your roster. It's somebody flexible who's playing really well who can help you out.
I love the Cameron Thomas pickup, especially I don't know when Ben Simmons is coming back. I mean, again,
it's not like they can count on Ben Simmons.
I mean, he's not hurt. I mean, he's had all this time to stay in shape. I knew if I was a basketball player and I was ready to play in the NBA, I'd be ready to go. Like, okay, you're traded. You can play now. Great, I can run in and play. Now he's like, oh, I have to get in condition. What do you mean you got to get in condition? I mean, you should be in condition.
You think you should have been staying in shape.
It's basketball season. There's no conditioning. You're in condition or you're not in condition. If he's not in condition, that's an embarrassment. I mean, he's not that old either. It's not like he's like an old guy getting the cobwebs out. I mean, he supposedly was working out with the Sixers before he was traded anyway. So, I mean, I believe he should be playing soon, but if not, Cameron Thomas, genius. Yep. I love it. 21 points a game the past 2 weeks. I mean, he's been tearing it up. I mean, he's a big part of that offense in Brooklyn, and they're not a good team. But Durant should be back also, I think, by the end of February. That's what they're predicting. Hopefully I'm right. We'll see what happens. But, what's your thoughts on that big three now with Simmons, Irving, and Durant all playing together? Do you think they coincide well?
I think if they're all healthy, I actually like it better than the Harden fit with that team because Simmons can be the ball handler that Harden was, but doesn't require the shooting that Harden does, and he's more of a distributor and a defensive presence. My issue with those big three was Durant can do everything on the field, on the court. To me, he might be the most complete player in the league right now when fully healthy. But Harden and Irving are so inconsistent on the defensive side of the ball, and they're both ball dominant players. I think Simmons can really be, that guy who can guard 4 positions, if not 5 on the floor, and doesn't need to get 20 shots a game. So I think he actually complements the other two very well. It's just a question of A, his conditioning, and B, whether they can get the chemistry going in time to make a difference.
Sounds good. I agree with you on that 100%.
So forwards, let's move on to forwards. I think obviously this is the deepest of the positions this week. I think there's a bunch you can choose from. Who are your top 2 or 3? And stay away from the ones who are power forward center because centers are thin. Dan likes to use them out of place and call them forwards. Let's save those for the center
will
position.
Stay away from the center eligible guys that are forwards. No worries. I got your back. I got it.
I appreciate it.
You know what I've been watching playing a lot? I've been watching the Mavericks just because of Luka. I love Luka. I mean, Luka has been doing everything. I mean, triple doubles, scoring points, and everything else. I mean, I think he's the best player in the league right now, playing him and Morant. But Luka's been tearing up. So his sidekick is Reggie Bullock. Worst haircut I've ever seen. I mean, his hair is unbelievable. It's like, what are you doing? But he's been averaging 16 points a game, and he's four rebounds a game, and he's been doing pretty well point wise, and he's been a good little assist guy for Luka. So I like Reggie Bullock. He can play forward, he can play guard, and forget about the haircut. He does need a haircut. He looks ridiculous. But long story short, Reggie Bullock is one of my top forward picks for the week.
Okay, I like that a lot. I'm going to name this guy. Dan talks about him every week, and that's Chumo Kiki, obviously the power forward in Orlando.
I love that name.
He's still playing great. He's still getting you, a lot of rebounds. What do we have? Over almost 6 rebounds a game, double-digit points, assists, over a steal a game, which is almost 2 steals a game and a block a game in the last 2 weeks. So he's putting up defensive numbers too, which can be hard to find these days. I like you talked about Memphis as one of your surprise teams. I think Brandon Clark is playing great right now, and he's worth a pickup. He's 47% owned. He's not a minutes guy. He's only getting 24.5 minutes a game, but he's really efficient with that time, shooting 65% from the field, 70% from the line. He's not going to shoot threes for you, but he's going to get you double-digit points. He can get you a bunch of rebounds. I think he's averaging 8 a game right now in the last couple weeks. So he's a guy I'm really high on. And then if you need three-point shooting, I like Kevin Huerter, Red Velvet, one of my Terps. I'm a big fan of the Terps here. And so I'm always going to pick him. In Atlanta, he's shooting the ball great. And that's kind of his role. So I don't think that will change.
Brandon Clark, you're right. I mean, 14 points a game the past 2 weeks. I like Brandon Clark a lot. And I believe he's one of my top forward picks of the week. That's a great pickup, Casey. Jonathan Kamuja, did I say his name right?
Yes.
For the Golden State Warriors. He's like, he's kind of like up and down. It just depends how much playing time he gets. Certain games he gets 30 minutes, and then certain games he gets 15 minutes. So I don't know what you'll get. I mean, I have no idea. It just depends what's going on in Steve Kerr's mind. But again, for the past 2 weeks, he's been averaging 14 points a game, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. I like that Golden State team. I feel they're the favorites in the West to win the West. I know the Suns have the best record. I know they're playing great basketball, but I'm saying when the playoffs start, I'm taking Golden State because I feel that they'll be healthy and they'll be ready to rock and roll, and they should win another championship. That's me talking. Who knows? Hey. But again, Jonathan Kamuja, great pickup. I feel he'll get more playing time when the season goes forward because they'll be resting some other players.
What are your you know who I hadn't spoken about him in years. I remember him at Duke. I remember him in Miami, but he's surfaced in Portland and he seems to be playing well the past couple of weeks. And that's Justice Winslow. Did you? I don't know if you get to watch any Portland games or not. I'm an East Coast guy and I try to get to bed at a reasonable time. So those games tend to be a little late for me. But what are your thoughts on Justice Winslow?
I saw Portland. Portland was decimated. I think it was last week. They were decimated after the trade deadline. They traded C.J. McCollum. They traded a couple other guys, and the other guys they traded for have not arrived yet. And they played the Lakers, and everybody thought the Lakers were going to destroy them. What happened? The Portland Trailblazers won. Yeah, they won, and Winslow had a big part of it. So I like Winslow. Again, he's a guy that he's a scrapper. He's been around the league for a while. If he gets the playing time, I know Little's hurt. They have a lot of injuries in Portland. If Winslow can get 20 to 25 minutes a game, it could be worth a pickup. This whole thing is about playing time. And they did pick up Sabonis, as you and I talked about it before. And Portland is kind of
Sabonis went to
Sacramento, right? Sacramento, correct?
Yeah.
Portland picked up. I forgot who they did pick up some players off trades, so that whole team's decimated. Lillard's not coming back anytime soon. They traded Lillard's best friend. C.J. McCollum's gone, so that's a team that's not. They're looking for the future. They got a lot of big draft picks coming up next year. But you know what team has the longest streak of not making the playoffs in the NBA? And it's still going on.
Who's that?
The Sacramento Kings. You said it where Sabonis went.
They are a mess.
They traded away. I mean, they traded away a lot of good players.
I'm a big Tyrese Halliburton fan. So
Halliburton is going to be a superstar in this league. He's the future in the league. And just saw a great interview with him on ESPN today. That trade surprised me because I thought they were looking for the future in Sacramento. Obviously, they're not. They're looking to do something this year. They're trying to make the playoffs. I get it. But again, I'm very curious to see if Sacramento can make the playoffs this year. That's going to be a great test.
As our in-house Clippers expert, tell me about Terrence Mann.
I love Terrence Mann. Florida State. He has great games, and his games where he's like a ghost.
I saw last night. Or 2 nights ago?
I used to recommend. I used to recommend him in fantasy. I stopped. He's too up and down. He gets a lot of playing time, but there's playing time where he doesn't do anything. But I do like his game, and I do like him. But fantasy wise, I don't think he's worth anything.
Somebody who I noticed has been playing well, certainly since the trade deadline, is getting a lot of playing time. Is it Darius Basley for Oklahoma City?
Darius Basley has been he's good games and bad games. Past 2 weeks, he's been averaging, I think, 13 points a game and 8 rebounds. He's a double guy, but he's not consistent. But I don't think he's a bad pickup. Again, I'm not a big fan of his game right now just because he doesn't consistently put up numbers.
So any forwards that we didn't mention that you think are worth talking about on this show?
There's really nobody else that comes to mind. We talked about everybody I wanted to talk about. We brought up, Carmelo Anthony should be back soon. With the Lakers. The Lakers, as you know, Antonio Davis is gone for at least 2 weeks. I watched that live when he rolled over Gobert's foot.
Was it that bad? I didn't see it yet.
Yeah, they carried. I mean, I thought he was out for the year. I said he broke his ankle. I mean, it was like he was cramped. He was like he couldn't even walk on it. I mean, it was horrible. He was on the ground for at least 5 minutes, and it was not pretty to watch. But Davis, he's just, I don't know if it's bad luck or he's just that.
Fragile, brittle.
I'm not quite sure. But again, we'll talk about the center position when we get there because I have some ideas about the Lakers. But I think when Carmelo comes back, he'll be getting a lot of rebounds when he comes back.
Yeah, I think the only one I have to mention him only because I think I've mentioned him in every show for the past 4 weeks at the forward position is Herbert Jones in New Orleans. For some reason, he's still only 56% owned. The guy's been top 40 or 50 for the past 2 months. And he's not getting any love. He does it. He's contributing to good percentages. He doesn't shoot the three, so he's not going to give you a lot of 3-pointers, maybe one a game, but he's giving you double-digit points, at least 2 or 3 assists, at least 5 or 6. Right now it's 4 rebounds, but he gives you a block. He gives you a steal a game. He gives you blocks. Just a guy who's contributing all over the place. And I just feel I'm not sure why he's not owned. But that's enough for centers. Let's talk about the big men. You have some ideas, so why don't you share with our audience who you think that should be?
LaMarcus Aldridge played last night and came, big part of that comeback for the Brooklyn Nets. He had 18 points, 9 rebounds. If he did that every night, he'll be 80% owned. Obviously. Oh yeah. But he's not doing that every night, obviously. But it's not a bad pickup. He's not owned in that many leagues. If you need a center position, and again, Brooklyn, I don't know when Durant's coming back, but as long as he's not in there, Eldridge's going to get some playing time. I don't think it's a bad pickup right now until Durant comes back.
Yeah, I think that's smart. The guy I'm going to name, he's only playing 15 minutes a game, by the way.
15 minutes?
In the last 2 weeks. But he's the 21st ranked player on Yahoo for 9 category leagues, and that's JaVale McGee in Phoenix. The guy's a block monster, averaging over a block a game. He gets in those 15 minutes, he gets double-digit points. He gets almost 7 rebounds a game in 15 minutes. If DeAndre Ayton hasn't had the best year, if Phoenix is going to go far in the playoffs, they're going to need that kind of two-headed monster. McGee's going to keep getting his minutes. He doesn't have to play passive because if he gets fouls, they have other big men who can fill in. So I think JaVale McGee on a minute-per-minute efficient point scorer, efficient fantasy producer is about as good as you can get right now at the center position off the waiver wire, and he's only 26% owned.
I like that pickup. And as I mentioned, when we get deeper into the season, I feel Ayton and some of these older, he's not that old, but some of these regular guys.
Have you seen him? He reminds me of was it Greg Oden from Portland?
Greg Oden, probably one of the biggest flops in NBA history.
Who looks like who looked like he was 55 years old at 22. Ayton kind of has that same look to him where he might only be in his mid-20s. I think he's only 26 or so, but he looks like he's 40.
He's a lot of age on him. I saw him play in college. He went to University of Arizona, my nemesis. But that all being said, Ayton's really good, but I think they'll be resting a lot of their, like Chris Paul. I don't think is going to play like 35 minutes a game. He'll cut down. They'll cut minutes down when close. Especially if they clinch home field and everything else, best record. they're going to rest some of the players, but that time is going to be like the prime time for playoffs and fantasy basketball. So that's when you got to prepare like your team is not going to have those players available playing full time.
I need to cut you off because I have breaking news.
What's the breaking? This better be important because I was in a great rant.
It is.
What is it?
Dr. Daniel Ratner has joined us. Let's see if we can get him on screen. There he is. Woo!
Here I am.
He
Sliding
made it.
in on the right side of my screen.
I know. But number one in your heart. Right?
Thank you. And listen, I've been watching you guys, and I was actually watching without sound at certain points, I admit, because I was in a meeting. Ross, your glasses are on a little crooked, but it looks awesome.
I just let him go. That's perfect.
Okay.
I just learned not to interfere with his kind of chi.
All right. So I know I've missed a bunch. So what I expect is that you go back and do the exact same thing word for word.
I'll start from
the beginning. Talking about Craig Elo.
Hello, fantasy sports fans.
Craig Elo.
So what's your opinion how great Craig Elo was for the crafting? We're not talking
Craig Elo, massively underrated. I was actually at the shot. We
didn't mention today's Michael Jordan's 59th birthday. We started with that about the show. So we did talk about Michael Jordan a little bit. And you can't talk about Michael Jordan without talking about Craig Elo because one of the biggest shots in NBA history was over Craig Elo's head.
That's right. And it was at the basket I was sitting at courtside. I was there. It's true. Quite a moment.
I bet you were thrilled.
So where are we in the waiver wire? What have you
covered? Where are the big men? So why don't you name some guards for us, Dan?
Name some people. Name some people. We'll tell them if we talked about them yet.
We'll do the prices right and give you an X if we talked about them already.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. All right. So, but you're on centers. Is that what
I'm centers?
Yes. We are.
Okay, so let's see. Let's go with some guards to mention. Chumo Kiki is he's a power forward. He's not a guard.
And we talked about him. And I even said this is for Dan.
I appreciate it. Well, Kobe White is our cover boy, so I'm sure you covered him. Did you talk about Devin Vassell? No.
Yes, we did.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, an X is if you did.
Yeah.
So you want me to bring up somebody you haven't covered?
Yes, keep going.
Let's try.
Keep going. I love this.
Let's see. No, you probably covered him. Did you talk about DeAnthony Melton?
No, we haven't talked to the Crespi High School representative, DeAnthony Melton, who got kicked out of USC. Tell us about him.
Well, he's got some really solid numbers, and he's got 24 steals in the last 30 days, on top of pretty solid, production otherwise. He is shooting 39% from the field. He's shooting 64% from the line. So if shooting percentages are your things, he's not your guy. But he is hitting three-pointers. He's scoring some points. He's getting really good steals. And, sometimes if that's your thing and you need it, great. He also puts up pretty decent assists. So definitely good to add him as a back-end guy. Let's see, who else? Well, I don't know if you've mentioned Patty Mills.
I haven't.
And I know he's cooled off a lot.
Well,
not today.
Not today. Well, he's cooled off a lot. I mean, I've got to say, I don't blame you for not mentioning Patty Mills, but when you talk about
say his name correctly, every time you use his name, if you got to say it correctly, you can't just say Patty Mills. You got to do it your way.
Patty Mills. I did it really exaggeratedly there that time. Yes, perfect. Patty Mills.
Love it.
He, I still think he's going to put up a lot of value with Harden gone. He's in a slump. He's shooting very badly. I say ride it out at the back end. Let's see. We've got Gary Harris. Did we talk about Gary Harris?
We did not. This can be your third guard. Then we're moving to forwards.
He's hitting a lot of threes. He's getting a decent amount of steals.
Magic. Yep.
This is like Adam Sandler in Billy Madison trying to advance all the way through school with a week at a time. We're gonna push him through.
It feels that way. Then again, I might rather have a guy like Corey Joseph, just because if you're looking, you know how I always talk about it. It's certain stats that you want. And if you want some assists, you're going to get it from him. You're not going to get it from some of these other guys I'm saying, although DeAnthony Melton does give you assists. But look at your league, look at your matchup, see what you need. Some of these guys are great pickups on a Thursday. And by the way, we only have one more week of this, so get it going. You got to get into the playoffs here. Should we move on to forwards?
All right, give us some forwards.
Wow. I didn't expect to come on the show and just have entire thing be me.
Well, we're doing the X game, so just keep going. Who's your forwards? Go.
All right, I'm looking for people that you may not have mentioned. Have you talked about Grant Williams?
No, we did not talk about Grant Williams, although he was on my list. Go for it.
Okay, Grant Williams. He's getting 25 minutes a game in the last 30 days.
Boston
shooting
Celtics,
50%.
for those of you asking.
He's shooting 100% from the line, only 8 of 8, though. So is that a big enough number? He hits threes. He scores a decent amount. He kind of gives you a little bit of everything. Where I really like him is blocked shots and shooting percentage. Those are the places to look. His turnovers are also pretty good to look at. We also have, you probably mentioned Onyeka Okongwu.
No, I thought he's been slumping his minutes have gone down pretty precipitously the last week, so I stayed away from him.
They have. Back-end guy, but if you need blocks, he's worth picking up. Now, a guy I picked up is Darius Basley. Did we talk about him?
We did talk about Basley.
Yeah, we talked about that. Tell us why you like him so much.
Okay, well, first of all, I have to amend the statement that I like him so much. I like him, but I picked him up and plugged him into my lineup, and he was horrible. He shot like 1 of 6. He scored 3 points or something like that. He was just terrible and terrible, as Charles Barkley would say. So, but I still do like him overall. His field goal percentage is not good, and his free throw percentage isn't great either. But he blocks shots, he gets steals, he gets lots of rebounds, and a decent amount of points. So it ultimately comes down to, is this a guy who gives you the stats that you need?
Okay.
Let's move to center. My other guys are lower on the list.
We've named
some
2.
Of the
so you named 2. Who's the one you like? Go.
You named 2 already? Did you name JaVale McGee?
I did.
JaVale McGee is pretty amazing. In the last 30 days, he's averaging only 16 minutes a game.
I know. For
we talked
fantasy
about
efficiency,
that.
There's nobody more efficient right now.
He's the worst haircut in the history of the NBA, too. We talked about it.
Oh, my God. Worst haircut in the history of the NBA. That's rivals a lot of things. Have we talked about Maxie Klieber? I bring him up all the time.
Maxie Klieber from Germany. Yeah, tell us about him.
Yeah. Oh, he sounds Swedish now. I don't know what's happening. Not my accent. But as we know, 3-pointers and blocks, it's hard to find that combination. Is he going to be that reliable? I like knowing that the unicorn is not there anymore. And as a result, I do think he's going to get playing time. He probably won't stay that healthy is part of the problem. But I do like him as a center. Hassan Whiteside, have you talked about?
Tell us where you like Whiteside. Go.
Well, one of the reasons I like Whiteside is just Gobert is getting injured a lot, and I think he has a decent role anyway. But it ultimately comes down to, do you need rebounds and blocks or field goal percentage, and can you withstand the horrible free throw percentage and obviously no threes? So it comes down to what you need. I'll just throwing out those couple names. Who else do you guys have?
Jason Hayes of the New Orleans Pelican team.
His minutes have fallen a lot too in the last week. I noticed.
And you know what? I picked him up, and he was horrible. There's been a couple
13 minutes, 13 points a game, 5 rebounds the past 2 weeks. He is up and down. You guys are right. The center position is a very tough position this week. There's not much to choose from. So if you're in a huge bind, I think Hayes is not the worst you can do. But you're 100% right with playing time and everything else. I mean, they traded away a center during the trade deadline. So I thought he was going to get more playing time, but obviously that's not happening. But he does have some really good games and then he has some really bad games. But as I mentioned before, Dwight Howard for the Lakers could be taking AD's place maybe for a couple weeks because AD's not playing. AD's not going to play for at least 2 weeks. They carried him off like he was shot in the leg in the war. I mean, it was like horrible I watched it live, and everybody was in shock in the stadium. I mean, it was like he was down for 5 minutes, and it was like a whole ordeal. And they carried him away like he was being rescued from a fire. But I think Dwight Howard's going to get the playing time, but they do have Jordan on that team too. I'm not quite sure what position. I'm not quite sure who's going to get the play. I have no idea. I mean, it's like a guessing game with that team. Like last night, Howard got the playing time, but Jordan didn't play 1 second. So I don't know.
Jordan is 59 years old and the owner of a different team.
DeAndre Jordan, the center.
We were talking about
DeAndre Jordan,
earlier,
not Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
We were talking about Greg Oden and Darius Ayton looking mysteriously similar in that they look 50 at the age of 25.
It is very weird. Like
who was a bigger flop in the NBA, Greg Oden or Sam Bowie?
Kwame Brown.
Listen,
Kwame Brown's a good one too.
That's a good one too. But I think Sam Bowie's got to take the cake because he was in the Jordan draft, drafted before Jordan. I mean,
but you got Odin going right before Durant, so that's a pretty good 1-2 there too. So
that's very bad. But it's Odin not Jordan.
He went back to college. I mean, after he retired from the NBA, he went back to Ohio State. He was like a student there, like walking around with his backpack on and trying to fit in with the students and everything. I mean, he went back to school to get his diploma. Good for him.
You got Darko going right before Carmelo Anthony. There's some really good flops in this.
There's some amazing flops, but if you flopped right in front of Jordan, it can't get worse.
I mean, can you imagine being the team that took Sam Bowie and he could have took Jordan, but they said, nah.
Well, in fact, look, I'm not going to defend Portland for a lot of things, but at least they had Clyde Drexler on the roster at the time. Who did they have when they took Greg Oden instead of Durant?
You also have to remember, before they drafted Jordan before Jordan came into the league, guard play was not regarded that way. The big centers were always the number one picks. Even so, they missed on Jordan. There's nothing else to be said.
All right. If you want to say it that way, and if you want to go to sleep at night, you're the GM of the Portland Trailblazers.
You got to use my reframing. I'm a therapist. Reframe it. Come on. All right. What about Marcus Morris Sr., Ross? What do you think of him? He qualifies at center. He's putting up some pretty solid
the past 2 weeks, he's been lights out. I mean, the Clippers, not a good team. I mean, they beat Golden State this week, which is unbelievable. But their two best players are probably out for the year. But Marcus Sr., he's picking up the slack. I mean, he's a great pickup. Pick him up. Yeah, I'm shocked he's under 60%. I'm shocked he's under 60%.
He's at 60%, so he just qualifies.
Yeah.
And to get back to the flop discussion, how would you like to be the Charlotte, was it Charlotte at the time, GM who traded Kobe Bryant for Vlade Divac?
Oh.
Was it Charlotte? I thought...
Yeah, he was drafted by Charlotte in a draft day trade. They sent him to the Lakers for Vlade Divac.
Did you know who was the biggest loser in that trade?
Who?
The Sacramento Kings. Because then they hired Vlade Divac and he ran them into the ground for several years.
There have been some pretty horrific trades we can talk about. We can talk about that the last show next week.
That's right.
So, Dan, do you have any other centers to mention, or Ross?
I really don't. I think we've given the people what they want and what they need. Go get yourself into the playoffs.
Go forth and conquer.
Put your comments in the comments below. If you want to have discussions about during the playoffs, I coaxed somebody through to a championship last year. I'll do it again. You let me know. Guys, this has been great. I'm glad I joined, even if I was late. Thank you for putting up with that. It's good to see you all.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right. We will see you next week.
Ever since I've been doing these commercials for Killcliff, my Tinder account has been blowing up, dog. Ooh, who's this horny young fella sliding into Brandy's DMs? Mr. Castlemaster. How about that? Killcliff Octane CBD. The killer Cliffsicle. All the benefits of caffeine smooth over with CBD. Own it.